New things in Max 6. First of all, a thing which I talked about in my earlier tutorials about having several windows open is kind of gone out of fashion, and Max has been redesigned as a kind of a single window type of application. So if you make a new patch in Max, by default what you get now is this new sidebar on the right here. So you might as well maximize your window and leave this sidebar open, and what you find here is you have Explorer, Inspector, Reference, and there's your Max window there. And the thing is, you need to remember to go and have a look in your Max window if you've got any problems, because if you've got any error messages, that's where they'll be, but if you don't look for them, you won't see them. Okay, so that's a new kind of single window method way of working in Max. Some more new things. An old school Max user like myself is very used to making objects by typing. I've got a little patch which I made up here which slices up a jungle loop at half speed. Let's just have a little quick listen to that. On there. Turn that up there. Okay, so that's what that one does. Now let's say just for fun I wanted to visualize the output of this patch. As an old school Max user, I'd be used to unlocking the patch, typing N for new object, and then going something like starting to type the name of the object I want, the spectroscope, select it from the auto completion list, and there we are, I get the object that I want. And pop that in there. Let's just see that working. Okay. I suppose the idea of this inspector on the right is a different way of working, where you look for the objects you want over here, and then you can either insert them into an unlocked patch by dragging and dropping, or even just by double clicking, and there you get the object there. There's a bit of a problem or a drawback with this. There are hundreds and hundreds of Max objects, and only a selection of them actually appear in this inspector here. And I'm talking about very important objects as well, not just obscure objects. Let's say I want to play a sound file. Well, the object I want is just not here to be seen anywhere. I still need to know that it's called sfplay, and the easiest way to get it is by typing sfplay. I can type it up here, sfplay there, and it'll eventually appear. Or more likely, I'll just go to wherever I want it to be, the usual old thing, type N, and start typing sfplay, and there I get my new object there. Okay, a couple of things here which are also slightly new. If I hover my mouse over the left inlet, I get a little red circle, which lets me do various useful things. If I click on that, I can open the help file, the reference file, I can inspect the attributes or set the attributes there, and I can find out very usefully what messages that object understands, and I can even, if I select one of those, it'll set up a message box ready for me to send a message there to the sfplay object. To the left of an object now you get a very similar kind of idea. It's a little thing called the wheel. There we are, there's the wheel, and that lets me see various things. Again, I can get to the help references, the attributes, which I'll maybe talk about in a minute. This is a new one. This is a files box, and this has seen a whole bunch of files which Max seems to have access to. So we can take, I don't know, let's take something here. Where was the one I had before? I don't actually know where these files are from. Anyway, let's select that file there. Nothing seems to happen, but we'll find in a minute that that sfplay file is actually now ready to play that sound file. More things in this wheel here. Sorry, it's tricky to get that to work. Preferences, that's just for the wheel. Connections, and once again, there's you've all got all the messages the object understands. Let's just do this attributes thing again. If I go up there, I can get this thing called an attribute inspector, which will show me that this sfplay object is expecting to play a file with a particular name. Another relatively new object here, this play bar there. It's quite a nice new little thing. Let's just pop that in there. Okay, just picking up after a small mistake there. Let's get back to where we were. Let's put a DAC in here so we can hear the audio file. There we are. Let's pop that in there, both channels of that. And then what we ought to be able to do is play bar. Unlock the patch again. Let's have another look at the wheel here. Files. Let's pick a different file. We need to go back into this attribute inspector. We can see we've now got a different file loaded. So there's a couple more new interface elements. Here's another thing which I'm not very much in the habit of using yet, is the global transport panel, which you'll find there under extras, global transport. And in order to use this, I'm using it with this metronome object here. I've set this up in a rather different way. Rather than putting in a value there in milliseconds, metro 4n, I can't remember what that means. At active means that this metronome is turned on and ready to go, and then by default that metronome is linked to this transport panel. So as the minute I turn that on, you see that my metronome starts to run at 100 beats per minute, which is perhaps a more convenient way of dealing with what speed metronomes are running at. It'll control all the tempos in your project at once. Also new is this little panel here, which looks like it's part of the patch, but actually isn't. You can turn that on and off there. It's a little mixer. This gives you a couple of things. It gives you a master output level control, and it gives you a handy button there for turning the audio on and off. And this little button in there takes you into a window which used to be called DSP status, and is now called, rather more obviously, the audio status window, options audio status, which is another useful way to get to this window here. One last thing I found which is new, which is to do with the help files, and that is that there used to be in the help files, what should we have a look at? Let's have a little look at something very obvious in there. In the help files, there also used a little bit which is see also. So if you found an object which does almost what you want but not quite, well, that's now here under this question mark, and you'll find there see also, or related objects, I think it used to be known as well. So you can see other objects which do similar things. Okay, that's a few of the things which I've found which are relatively new in Mac 6 and possibly helpful.